Happy Mother's Day out there, everybody who is celebrating this wonderful weekend. It is one of the weekends in real estate market statistics that we do see a little bit of a dip in business. And I think that's probably because we have more females in the real estate business than we have males in our marketplace. So, hey, that's not bad either. So, happy Mother's Day, everybody out there. And this week's show is the topic is about perspective and maybe what kind of a buyer or seller, what kind of a client you have working with you. So um, it's kind of one of those shows where I started to work on it this morning and I had computer problems and everything kind of slowed down and I ended up being delayed here about an hour and a half. And it worked out really well because everything happens for a reason. I was able to really, I think, put the message together better this week with a little bit more time that I've taken. And so, with that said, let's jump right into this week's show with Des Moines Market Values. Hey there, it's Les Sulgrove. This is week 19, 2025, and the topic of this show is, are mortgage rates slowing down home buyers? And it's a little bit of perspective. It's a little bit of understanding who your clients are and what aspect of the market that you're really working as to whether or not we feel like maybe that's slowing down the market or not. Because there are certain segments of the market that's really taken off this year and other markets that's kind of a little bit lagging behind. So we're going to talk about those today. And as we always do, we'll start off with the dashboard and three more viewers this week or subscribers this week. 892 subscribers. That's great. Let's get to 900 quickly, and then push our way up to 1,000 here by summertime. Inventory is still on the rise. 23% year-over-year increase, sitting right now at 3,843 homes on the market. We expect to probably be close to 4,000 here in about another 3 or 4 weeks, maybe. I think we'll hit that. And then the question is basically how far above that do we go, above 4,000 this year. So still seeing the increase in both of the existing home sale subcategories of existing homes and existing condos. And so we'll talk about kind of that as we move forward. The big news this past week was we did cross that 4,000 closed sale milestone. We're currently sitting 4,069 today, this Sunday, May 11th. And that's up, we're about 11 closed sales ahead of this time last year. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let's, keep positive. And I've got part of my message today is where I think we're going to head with this, same kind of a pace or not. And I think the outlook looks good here. Mortgage rates stayed right at 6.7% again for the second week in a row, the national 30-year fixed. So we're seeing, another week of stabilization. It's still a little high, but it's stabilized. So with that, let's jump in here to the topic of the day. It is all about perspective. You've probably seen this image somewhere out there on the internet or on Facebook or someplace. And it's basically an image of a lion with a cub's head in its mouth, or at least it appears to be in its mouth. And in reality, the other view shows exactly what was happening or with that cub. And with the media, sometimes this is what happens. They report one thing and it's really another, or maybe we have a feeling in the real estate market it's one way, and when in fact it's really another. So it's again the perspective or your view on the marketplace as to how you perceive it. We are talking the first part of the show this week about the year-to-date closed sale pace, and again that perspective looking at 23 days from the last time we broke from 2,000 to 3,000, and this time we've broken from 3,000 to 4,000. It took exactly the same number of days that it took last year. 27 days the previous 1,000, 26 the previous 1,000 to that. So other than that first 1,000 that took 50 days, we've been right in that little over 3 weeks period of time there, 3 to 4 weeks to break 1,000. We do anticipate that as we move into the summer months and these late spring and early summer months that we will see that those numbers come down a little bit, but you can see there at the bottom that it took us 25 days to hit 5,000 last year, 21, 23, 23, before it started trailing back up around the last, 2/3 or last half of the year, last quarter of the year, probably there. So again, we're still right on track, probably for about 13,000 closed sales. Now, if we look at this same number, the 23 days compared to the 4,000 milestone, how did we compare the 4,000 milestone going all the way back in time? Well, with the exception of COVID, post-COVID time, even in the midst of COVID, we were only 21 days in 2022, and in fact, it was actually took 26 days in 2023, and that's kind of flying in the face of what we were seeing. But again, most of that business was done later in the late summer, late spring, early summer, in the middle of the COVID years. So no surprise in my book that we're basically maintaining pretty much that same pace that we saw all the way back to 2016, when it really had slowed down. We were 36 days all the way back in 2011 was the high point there. So this is, again, you think that this number is really, really high compared to what it was maybe in COVID, and it's not. So it's that perspective again that we're looking at. To switch gears now for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about mortgage interest rates and whether or not they are slowing down potential home buyers. And I guess the question I have to ask is, which of these two animals reflects your client out there? Do you have the client that remembers that mortgage interest rates were extremely high, or do you have the client who couldn't tell you what interest rates were last week or what they had for breakfast this morning? So that's all going to basically be how you're going to deal with those clients. If you've got somebody who remembers a lot of the things about the past, for example, you have somebody who said, oh man, I remember back in the 80s when rates were around 18%. They're probably not as concerned about a 6.5% interest rate that we're seeing today locally. Whereas if you've got somebody who is, more recently jumped into the buying market or really started paying attention, the last 10 or 12 years or 15 years, you can see that, that rates are higher compared to what they're thinking of. And so if we kind of look at these little time frames, again, back to 2010, those people are thinking along the lines of, man, rates are really, really up compared to what we're used to. Well, if that's all they remember, then that's their perception. You can't try to change their perception. You can simply just kind of help show them that over time that maybe our rates are not as bad as they all think. And, obviously we've got that period of time there when we were just below that or at or below 3% there in early 21. But really, if you've just started looking at homes here in the last 2.5 years or so, really this is the normal for you, around that 6.5%. So as we build time onto the back end, as where we are right now, and we get farther away from that 3% days, I think that we're going to see that maybe mortgage rates are probably not going to be the issue maybe as much here. So to give you some idea here, this is the weekly mortgage rates compared to the last year. The black ticks there are all the previous months. And so we go back about 12 weeks, actually, of 12 weeks straight of being lower mortgage interest rates than last year. And remarkably so, the last 4 weeks. You can see that a year ago at this time, we were just coming down from almost a 7.25% high interest rate the week before. So, and all things together, the 6.76 we have right now is still a pretty good rate, especially when you just compare it back to the past 12 months. So the idea here is that hopefully we'll start to see these rates come down just a little bit like they did last year. We kind of saw that pace, trickle down for the last, 5 or 6 months in a row until we got to the end of October. And then it seems like October every year, we look at these histories, and the end of October, 1st of October, it seems like rates come up until we get to the end of the year. So at least we've got this to look forward to if we're going to follow the pace of the past years. As far as buying power goes, you've seen this graphic before. This is a graphic that kind of gives you the idea of if a buyer were funding a $2,000 a month principal and interest payment. So we're kind of backing into this. They're going to spend $2,000 on principal and interest. This does not include taxes and insurance or mortgage insurance if they're doing that. It's simply the cost of the mortgage itself, $2,000, and it's a 30-year fixed rate. And you can see, going back and get my head kind of down out of the way here, 2018 is where this graphic starts, and you can kind of see that $400,000 for that year of 2018 was the amount, and that's again with lower interest rates, as was what that $2,000 principal and interest could fund. And then as this begins to rise with buying power, this is at the heart of that 3 or sub 3% mortgage interest rates. And so there was a time there, a short period of time, where that $2,000 principal and interest would actually fund a $500,000 mortgage. And we've certainly seen those times go. They've came and they've gone, and now we're down here around from about the last 2.5 years again, showing you that that $2,000 principal and interest payment is funding about a $300,000 payment. So if you have somebody out there that's the elephant that's remembering, maybe they bought a house or they refinanced or something, and they're thinking of this period of time. Well, those times are gone, and that's you just got to keep them on track. That even if this isn't that bad, this is kind of the where we're at with the normal here. So the best news here, and again, it's just basically that we have stable buying power, not going up, not coming down. I mean, I'd love to see it come down, but if it comes down, it's probably not bad if it just kind of slowly comes down, so that it doesn't feel like you're, if you wait, you might see a 0.5% decrease. You won't see that, and I don't think in the current mortgage and real estate industry environment. That's the word. So to finish it out here, let's kind of look at the categories of the subcategories of homes being sold, and as far as the pace of sales. Now, this is one of the things that if you're working with some buyers, they're feeling like, man, homes are selling very quickly. Or if you've got a home seller and it's an existing home, they are selling faster, and there are more home buyers out there buying those homes. And our pace of closed sales is pretty good here. You can see that we're up over last year with these last 6 weeks here of business from April to date, that we are actually closed sales ahead of last year. And I'm going to fill this out here in a minute. But what I want to focus on is this 6-week period, because if you recall, the average closing takes around 6 weeks. It's 4 to 6 weeks or so. And so I'm going to use this as a 6 week measurement. And so the fact that these homes here closed in these 6 weeks at a higher pace, it comes as a result of business that happened these prior 6 weeks. And if you look at the black line here, the black trailing line, that's the mortgage interest rates. So what we can see is that really coming out of winter and into the early spring, we were seeing mortgage interest rates consistently come down, and then they kind of flattened out here a little bit around that 6.75%. The scale's over here on the right for the mortgage rate one. And the zero over here means that we're ahead or behind last year. So we started off the year behind almost 45 homes closed that first week, and then by week, we've improved that to the point now where we are currently about a little over 60 ahead. And in fact, if we'll bring that over here, we're 64 homes ahead of this year. So if you look at this black mortgage line here and you go, okay, it looks like rates stayed down at least 2 more weeks before they started to kind of rise quickly. If you remember that here about 4 weeks ago, we saw mortgage interest rates kind of come up. Well, this business here, we had business for 2 more months or 2 more weeks here. So we could realistically maybe expect that if everything's going to stay the same pace, the existing home sales are going to continue to rise for the next couple of weeks. And then we'll see at that point if this rise in mortgage interest rates starts to trail off. And it's not going to drop off, because this is a consolidation or a grouping of 6 weeks of business. So if just a rise over 2 weeks, it's very well possible that that's not going to cause this category to drop off and start to lose track or lose ground again. So my expectations are that we're going to see existing home sales continue to be strong through the spring and early summer months. And if we look at the existing condo townhome sales, again, here's the 6 weeks prior, and then the 6 weeks before that. I'm sorry, the 6 weeks prior is here. You can see that we've actually were doing more business in the condo townhome category. In fact, if we slide that scale over to about 4 weeks back before that, that's when we really started to see this particular subcategory start to gain pace on the marketplace. We're currently sitting 31 homes, closed townhome sales ahead of last year. 64 plus 31. Now we're sitting at 95 year to date closed sales. Well, that's all fine and good. Now we're gonna look at the new home sales. This is new home single family homes, not the condo townhomes. And we're going to take a look and see where those categories are. So if you're working in new construction, or if you're looking as a buyer in new construction, you're probably finding that maybe there's more inventory out there than you're used to seeing if you've been kind of watching that marketplace for a while. And if you're a realtor representing a builder, or a builder going, what's going on? Our inventory isn't selling maybe quite as quickly. Well, look at the last 6 weeks of business. 3 of those weeks, the trend was still down. So it was almost affected much heavier with this lower drop, this slow drop of mortgage rates. And combine that with the fact that a lot of the times the new construction business doesn't really get started in earnest until about 1st of March, I think, is when we really start to see a lot of the new construction start to come under contract overall. So that might just mean that we're just now starting that point where we're going to maybe start to catch up. Well, then we've got this little 2 week or this week or so period where we saw rates go up again. So we'll watch these as well. The condo townhomes, or I'm sorry, the brand new homes are taking away 29 of that 95 home lead that we had. And let's finish this off here before we go to the final slide and see what the condo townhome market's doing. It's even struggling worse. They are 54 closed sales behind last year. So at this time last year, we had 54 more homes closed than we do so far year to date on the existing condo townhomes. This is just a head or behind number. This does not mean we've only sold 54 or sold 64. This is just how many ahead or behind we are. So again, the new construction condo townhome category is kind of dragging along with the new homes. So the net of those two is 12 homes year to date ahead. So by the time you take the 95 and you subtract out the ones on the new construction side, that still gives us a positive net number of closings ahead of last year. And again, we're going to kind of watch what happens here in the next few weeks. We'll have probably 2 more weeks for sure of decent closed sales, just because of the rates didn't jump up fairly dramatically there. That was a pretty good jump actually when they did that from 6.5 to, or 6 point. There's about 6.5, a little over 6.5 to almost 6.75. So overall, I think we're in a pretty good boat here for the next 2 or 3 weeks. We'll probably start to see this number kind of come up a little bit. So anyway, that is the show this week, guys. Thank you for joining me as always. My name is Les Sulgrove. This is Simply Des Moines Market Values. Be sure and hit that subscribe button. That helps YouTube also get the program out to new viewers as well. And I certainly do appreciate all the brand new subscribers I continue to get every week. So we will see you all again next weekend. And again, happy Mother's Day out there. So be safe and enjoy this weather.